Hi, everyone. Welcome to the masterclass today. We are talking about the psychology of presence, why some people command a room instantly and others just are sort of there. I've been in classes or I've been in rooms, and I'm sure you have as well, where one person just magnifies the room. When they come in, they light it up and they speak, and people listen. And then in other rooms where, for example, at work, leaders come in and the room is really even and he's talking. That is a matter of presence. Somebody said that competence gets you invited, but presence gets you remembered. So many people think that presence is charisma or magic, and the truth is charisma is just a group of communication skills. And the good news is that communication skills can be taught. Now, so often, what people do incorrectly is they rush, they ramble, they use a lot of filler words. And the truth is, those things don't show confidence, they don't show certainty. What they do show is some question into your own abilities. Why do you have to talk so fast? Some people think that talking fast shows that they know their stuff. The truth is, talking fast affects the clarity of your conversation. People have trouble following when you're speaking fast, and they aren't getting the information that you want them to have. And if they have to work hard to decode it, then they're just going to stop listening completely. A person with presence appears calm. They appear certain, they appear comfortable, and most importantly, they appear intentional. When you are calm, you make the room around you calm. Calm suggests trustworthiness, confidence. It suggests that you are comfortable at what you're doing. And most importantly, again, intentionality is critical. You want to make sure that every pause, every pace that you have, every word that you use is what you intend to use. Now, what are some of the signals of presence? Hey, Nisha, welcome. I'm glad you're here. We are talking about the psychology of presence in a room and why some people command a room and others do not. Right now, what we're talking about is that people trust calm before they trust expertise. People want to ramble. They want to talk fast. They want to make sure that they fit everything in, and they usually have a tendency to talk around their topic before they actually land on their point. One of the other things that you'll find that people who are nervous is not only do they speak fast, but they have excessive movements. They talk with their hands a whole lot. They look around a lot. Those are those are signs of nervousness. Nervous laughter, that's another thing. And then filler words, lots of extra words that people don't need. And that's not just and ah, that's also words like, and, so. Those are some of the phrases that people use when they're nervous. There are 4 signals of presence that people have. They are composure. Composure is when the person is calm. They leak, when somebody's anxious, they leak that anxiety out of them with rushed speech and excessive movement and filler words and nervous laughter. But a person who speaks with confidence is the exact opposite. The second thing that people speak with is certainty. Now, certainty is not arrogance. Certainty is just knowing what you want to say. So, for example, a weak conversationalist would say, So I was thinking that maybe we could, whereas someone who is certain about what they want to say will just come in and say, I recommend plan B. And here's why. Certainty is very, very important. I think the third one is probably the most important of all, and that is attention control. Person who has ability to direct attention to themselves in a positive way commands the attention of the room. They're not demanding attention, they are commanding attention. And you do that with pauses. When you pause, that moment of silence gives people an opportunity to think about what they want to say, or I'm sorry, what they just heard and digest it. But it also does give you a moment to get your thoughts together for what you want to say. Another thing that people who command attention do is they change the pace of their conversation. Some words are a little faster, some are slower. There's a pause, then they speak again. The other thing that people who command attention do is they speak in a lower voice. And I don't part of that is if you're nervous, you have a tendency to speak up here all the time because you've got a lot of breath and really breathy and you're talking really fast. And so you're kind of squeaky. And when you're speaking lower because you have presence, it's a combination of two things. One of them is that your resonance is lower. You're not squeaky, you're not breathy because you know what you want to say. Now, I do want to say that I was up late last night at a concert, so I yelled a lot and I'm a little scratchy now. So I'm not I'm not defeating what I'm talking about by having a lower resonance. That's just where my voice is today. Um, the other thing when they speak lower is they speak a little bit quieter. And the advantage of that is that it brings people in. It makes them listen a little closer. It makes them lean in a little closer to hear you. And that's part of commanding a room. And the other important part of it is that they ask strategic questions. They stop frequently and say, does that make sense? They will ask, Mohammed, welcome. So happy to see you here today. We are talking about the psychology of presence and how people command a room. Right now, we're talking about the language and the communication styles that people who command a room use. The first one was composure. They don't rush their speaking. They don't have excessive movement. They don't use filler words. They don't have nervous laughter. They are composed and in control of themselves. The second one is certainty. Certainty is where you know exactly how you feel about something and you communicate it clearly and concisely as opposed to rambling around until you finally land on the point. The third one is the one that I think is most important, and that is attention control, commanding the attention of the room, not demanding it, commanding it. And you do that with things like pauses, the pace of your speech, by having a lower voice, both in terms of resonance as well as slightly lower in volume, making people lean in a conversation. And then where you stepped in is where we were talking about asking strategic questions. Questions like, does that make sense? What are your thoughts on that? Whoever controls the attention in the room controls the influence in the room. And the fourth and final communication tool that person with presence has is emotional stability. Now, we have all seen newscasters, and somehow, when they're talking about the most horrific stories, they're able to remain very controlled. They keep their emotions in check. That is what a person who commands a room does. They don't get excited. They don't get emotional and upset if they're angry or if they're passionate about something. That doesn't mean that you don't show any emotion, but it does mean that you don't let it get out of control. You are in control of your emotions at all times. Now, what makes people look at you and say, Mohammed, I want to listen to you? And part of that is that the brain is trained to check a few things when it gets into a meeting or into a conversation. The first thing is it a safe situation? Are you a safe person to talk to? The second one is, are you competent? Are you competent to speak on the topic that you're speaking about? The third is, are you credible? Can I trust what you're saying? And the fourth is trustworthiness. Are you an honest person? Before they evaluate whether they want to listen to you, they quickly review those four things in your head. I'm seeing someone trying to get into the screen here, so if you're seeing flashes on the screen, that's what it is. Someone's trying to get in, and school is not letting them for some reason. So disregard any flashes that you're seeing on the screen. The signals, I mentioned earlier about the signals that people had, where they were looking for the communication skills. The signals that people share are eye contact, hugely important. Maintaining eye contact is the number one communication skill whenever you're in a conversation, both as a speaker and a listener. You want to maintain eye contact and not look around or not drift off into the distance. The second one is your voice. Controlling your voice in the way that I just mentioned, controlling the pauses that you use, the volume that you use, the pace that you use. Your facial expression is critical. People want to know that your facial expression is congruent with the conversation that you're having. If you're having a very serious conversation and you start giggling and smiling big and laughing, that is not congruent. That is going to make people very, very uncomfortable. Also, posture. Your posture should be erect and not slouching. You should be confident in what you have. You should be controlling your arms and your hands in the way you speak, not flapping them around all over the place, but keeping them to make a point, to emphasize or accentuate, not flapping all over the place. And the final communication tip is word choice. You want to make sure that the words that you're using are meeting the level of conversation. We are professionals here. When we're having a professional conversation, we should be using professional words. We should be using good grammar and good vocabulary. People often think that they're being judged for their intelligence. In the truth, they're probably being judged based on their communication signals. If I'm not looking you in the eye, you're starting to question my credibility and my trustworthiness. If my voice isn't giving pauses, if I'm racing through the conversation, again, you're questioning my credibility. What are you rushing for? What are you trying to prove? If there's not congruency in your expressions and in your word choice, if your posture is not showing confidence, people notice those things. Let people hear your confidence before they hear your content. Let them know that you are in control and that you've got what it takes to command a room. Language is so important when you are commanding a room. You don't want to use weak language like, well, I was thinking that maybe perhaps we could. No, you just want to say, hey, my recommendation is B. You don't want to start conversations with, well, I don't I don't know if this makes sense. You want to say, here's how I see it. Do you hear the difference in those phrases? Do you hear the difference in the confidence of saying, here's how I say it, as opposed to that wishy washy, I'm not sure if this makes sense, but you need to speak like you believe what you're saying. Because when you believe what you're saying, people can hear that certainty in your voice. The other way that you want to communicate is point first communication. You want to start with your point and then explain. I heard it beautifully said. You have to land the plane before you tour the airport. You have to land your point before you start explaining the details. The other thing that people with strong communication skills do that command rooms is that they finish their thoughts. They don't start it and then move on to something else. They speak in complete ideas. They don't bounce from one idea to another. They avoid verbal wandering, which is a nice way of saying they don't ramble. Excuse me one moment. Thank you. Mohammed, as I explained to Nisha earlier, I was up late last night at a concert and I was yelling a lot, so my voice is a little raspy today, and hence needing drinks of water during the conversation. Finally, you want to make sure that your point is arriving. You want to start with it first. Oh, thank you, Mohammed. Nisha, he just said he was sorry that I was raspy. Today, in the AI world, it is even more important that we command the attention of people when we speak, that we command the room. AI can generate emails and reports and conversations with people. They can, and information is cheap. Anybody can get it with the help of AI. They can get answers. They can have knowledge that other people had to spend years of working and learning. Now they can get it with just a few quick prompts. So information has become cheap. What AI can't do is that it can't walk into a room. It can't have the conversation for you. It can't use discernment in what to say. It can't use the point first communication skill. It can't earn trust and credibility. So, in this time when information is so cheap, the value is in presence and trustworthiness and credibility in what you are saying. Everyone has access to answers. Influence belongs to the people who other people trust. The important thing to know is that when you command a room, that does not mean that you are the loudest. It doesn't mean that you are dominating the conversation. It means that you have composure. It means that you have certainty in what you're saying. It means that you have emotional control. And it means that you have attention control, that you are commanding the room, not demanding it. The goal is not to dominate. The goal is to be the person that everyone wants to listen to. I found this on the internet, and I thought that it was a wonderful summary of what I wanted to talk about today. So I want to give you these 10 presence principles. Number 1, slow down. Don't speak fast. Rushing makes people wonder why you're talking so fast, and it makes it difficult for people to understand you. Number 2, finish your thought. Now, if you get lost in the middle of your conversation, own it. There have been times when I've been talking and all of a sudden my mind has just blinked out. At that point, what a lot of people will do is they'll ramble, thinking that maybe if they keep talking, it'll come to them. That is not what you do. What you do is you pause. And if it doesn't come to you, you take ownership of it and you say, wow, I just lost it. Let's move on to something else. The third presence principle is to pause before important thoughts. You want to make sure that you are pausing before numbers, before names, before it points in a list like I'm doing now, and before and after important thoughts that you share. You want people to know, oh, there's a stop sign here. There's a reason that she's stopping for a second. She's pausing to make sure that I can remember this, that I know that what I'm about to say is important. Also, stop apologizing for speaking. What you want to do is believe and be certain in what you're saying. You want to make sure that the things that you say are things that you believe and that you will support. So stop apologizing. Don't start conversations with, I don't know if this makes sense, but start the conversation with, here's what I think. Lead with your conclusion. That's a fancy way of saying point first conversation. Let me tell you first what I believe or what I recommend, and then let me explain it. You want to land the plane before you tour the airport. You want to make sure that you are finishing your thought concisely. Point first, brief explanation, and then what's the next action step? And that ties into the next point, number 6, use fewer words. Sometimes people think that the more they talk, the more intelligent they sound. In my experience, the more you talk, the less credible you sound. You don't want to be rambling on just to fill space and show how smart you are. A smart person can say it short and sweet and simple. If you know your stuff, you can say it short, sweet, simple. Hold eye contact. That's number 7. Hold eye contact just a little longer than other people do. Now, that doesn't mean that you stare them down and intimidate them. It just means that when you're talking to them, really look them in the eye. Now, I will say something about being on Zoom conversations. Although I can't see your faces, I'm only seeing your pictures. I'm looking at your pictures. I'm talking to you. When you're on the computer, you want to be looking at the camera, because when I'm looking at the camera now, I look like I'm looking in your eyes. Now, I do that because number one, it's really hard for me to do. So I have this little pink sticky note and I have it right behind the camera on my computer. That helps me remember to look there. But when I'm speaking like this and we're not so much having a dialogue as much as a master class, I have a tendency to want to look in the eyes of the people that I'm speaking to. If you're on a Zoom call like this, or you're on another online meeting, try to look at the camera because that gives the viewer a perception that you're looking them in the eye. Number 8, replace uncertain language. That's things like, I'm not sure if this makes sense, but. It's also phrases like, well, I'm not sure, but maybe I was thinking that perhaps we could. Get rid of all of that uncertain language. Be concise in what you're saying. Be certain about what you're saying and then say it. Number 9, stay calm under pressure. Now, this is both based on the conversation. If you're having a very serious or difficult conversation, perhaps you have employees and this conversation is telling them that you're going to have layoffs coming. That's a very difficult conversation to have, but they are counting on you to be strong. So control your emotions. Stay calm under pressure. Another place that you might be under pressure is if someone is challenging your thoughts or your ideas, or maybe they keep interrupting you. That can be really annoying. And so you want to make sure that you're being as calm as you can through the entire conversation. And you can learn phrases when you're being interrupted. For example, you might say, let me just finish this thought and then I'll address that. Or if someone keeps interrupting you and challenging you, you can say, that's an interesting point, and I'd like to discuss that as soon as I finish what I'm saying here. Or if you're finished with what you're saying, that's an interesting point. Tell me why you think that. You don't want them to just tell you what they think. You want them to tell you why they think that. It puts them on the spot and it makes them think about why they're talking and why they're interrupting you and why they're challenging you. And finally, remember, presence is not about being noticed. It is about being trusted. It is not about it is not about demanding the room. It is commanding the room with your trustworthiness and your credibility. That is where people want to talk. That's where those are the people that others want to speak with, want to talk to, want to listen to. Commanding the room is a learned communication skill. It is not about charisma. It is not about magic. It is about learning the communication skills that matter. Being composed at all times, standing straight, looking people in the eye, being certain about what you're saying, having attention control, where you are making sure that people are listening to you, and they're listening to you because you're not rambling, you're looking them in the eye, You are speaking with point first communication. And finally, the emotional stability that we talked about, not allowing other people to get you flustered, not allowing the topic to impact your emotion. I've been talking for 36 minutes. Now I'd like to hear from you. Do either one of you want to come online and either show me your camera or your voice and tell me what you think about having presence in a room or any questions that you might have?
Hey there. So I can go. I think presence it is very important. And the
Miss Nisha, it looks like you are trying to talk, but I can't hear you.
Are you able to hear me now?
I can't hear you. School must be having a little bit of a bugaboo because I saw other people trying to get in earlier and it kept kicking them out right away. So I apologize for that. I do appreciate that you wanted to say something. Mohammed, I am so glad that you joined us today. Nisha, this is Mohammed. And Mohammed, correct me if I'm wrong. Are you from Dubai? And you can either send something through the chat or you can talk or you can just nod. That is what I have for you today on presence. And I think I lost Mohammed too. Nisha, I really appreciate you being with me today. I am going to stop the recording. For those of you watching the replay, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you listening, and I hope that this message on presence has helped you. And I'll stop.